Alright, welcome back to Twist of Fate Legacy. I am your diabolical dungeon master, Bray. Let's dive back on in, shall we? Chapter 2. One finger. That couldn't hurt. Just touching it the slightest bit. This is a piece of his history. This is a piece of his legacy, after all. This could be a clue as to who they truly are. All of these thoughts and more were swirling through the son's mind as the stew bubbled over and the hissing fire down below was spitting up fragrant smells and steam, but Sun had only eyes for this magnificent crystal blade that was above the hearth. This blade that Father had reverently told him about was found in the same chamber that he was 10 years ago to this day. Reaching out and touching the crystal of this blade, a multitude of things happened to Sun all at once. It was like this whirlwind of effects that came onto them. They found themselves feeling as though they had been plunged into icy water, just this cold shock going all throughout them. At the same time, it's like every single nerve ending within their entire being was on fire and sparking the absolute worst pins and needles you can ever think of, tingling over every single scrap of themselves. Wind swirling around in their ears, so suddenly they couldn't hear anything, but the blood just pounding away, and this full-on sense of vertigo as the world that is in front of them seemed to be falling away as everything was just getting darker and darker and darker around them as they slipped back, as Sun falls from the chair that they were standing upon, the sword falling with them. So it felt as though the finger that had touched the crystal of this blade was stuck to it and magnetized, drawing this blade back as they found themselves falling. There is a moment in and amongst all of this where they start to register with fear and horror as the blade's tip seems to come just edging closer and closer, but that same warped nature of everything slowing down time was feeling like it was both moving incredibly quickly and so very slow at the same time. The finger that had touched the crystal that was magnetized to this blade drawing back, Sun watches in this detached fascination and a sense of mortified dread as the crystal of the sword slowly begins to merge up, seeping onto one finger. Then once it had entirely encased that, moving through to flow over the others, the blade shrinking as the crystal began to encapsulate and swirl all over the right hand of Sun. They fall. As they're doing so, there is just this flare of light. The entire cabin all around them is just blinding in its brilliance. And then there is this thump, but it's as though Sun is falling into deep water, hits the floor but doesn't fully register it, as it feels like his soul, his spirit, his essence sinks down deep and gets drawn away from the physical. The last thing that the son sees before everything goes black is door slamming open, father standing in the doorway, already in the process of rushing forward, but it's like he's moving through water, moving slow. So as he charges on through, hand outstretched, eyes wide with fear and concern and just wanting to stop whatever it is that is happening. Father gets to son's side, grabs him and brings him to his chest, holding him, and that is all that son registers as everything goes dark. It takes a moment to son, but who knows how long time has truly been ticking for in this moment. Everything is dark all around. You can't feel the change in his hand, but there is a warm, fiery sensation that is flowing throughout his body. He can't move in this moment. He feels like he is frozen, but it's not uncomfortable. There is, as though he is swaddled and wrapped, this feeling. It's evoking a sense of familiarity for the son, as this sensation. This is what he thinks of in that dark time before father found him, before he met Varen and Hera and Bliss and Furion, Lysandra. These people who became like family to the son. Not all of them hung around, but they all left an impression regardless. Son blinks and it's like the eyes are opening for the first time. Is this memory? Is this dream? Is this somewhere else? It's hard to tell. The edges of everything feel off and shaky as the eyes blink and flutter. It's like almost hearing the grinding of crystal as the eyelids are working against something heavy, something that was encasing this body. And as son's eyes fully open, they're looking out, but it's like looking out through dirty glass. There is liquid that is all around, taste of brine, salty water in the back of the throat. Everything is this green crystal sort of sheen to it as son looks, slowly lifting one hand and then the next. Son's hands are so small in this moment, so small, like that of a tiny child. There may be a third of his current size. There's a sound off in the distance. Big crashing. There's almost a rumble that shakes the water that is within this cage, this tube, this chamber. It swirls and sloshes ever so slightly. Sun's hand goes up, presses against the green glass that they find themselves in, and as they do so, the glass begins to shimmer, and where once it was opaque, it then begins to clear as the hand goes across, wiping away some of the filth and grime that is built up within this tank. That's right. It's all bubbles slowly going up. The sun hand, one on the wall of the tank, the other hand then try and hit against it, but no strength in this tiny, frail little body that they find themselves in. The chamber beyond, there's this big gout of flame that bursts forth, and Sun watches as figures move in the flashing flame light. They're attacking these stony forms that are moving forward with very rough and uncoordinated movements. There's a heavy as one of these golems that is outside has slammed a hand down. A lithe figure leaps up. There's a flash as a blade of energy just flares from this figure's hand, slashing the golem. The sun just hears everything rumbles. They shake, suddenly bringing both hands around, coming back, bubbles coming out from the mouth as they look around frantically, trying to see anything else that is around in this chamber. Unfortunately, there's just more crashes and rumbles, more magical flames go swirling out. There's other figures that are coming through, magical weapons, shing, 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 fighting away at the golems that are on the other side of this glass. Sun's heart is beating faster and faster in his chest, and that's when he looks at his right hand. There is a flare in the palm. There's now inset this incredible flaming crystal that lies within, has the shape of a flame, and it's just embedded in there, and it is alight and humming, and just gets lost in looking at it and looking up and out. He sees that through the tank there is another that is next to him, and as he places his hand on the side of the glass, there is that thrumming intensifies as he peers through, and he sees floating in a tank beside him is that same crystal sword, but it is held in the hands of a large and intimidating but emaciated figure. Looking at it, there's no bubbles that are coming forth from the mouth. The hair is similar to Sun's. It's this blue-green, almost crystalline, just floating in the tank, but it's lost a lot of its color and luster, and seeing it through the green of the glass, it almost looks frail and crackling, same as the skin of this individual that must be somewhere in the vicinity of 8 to 9 feet tall, incredibly long hands and arms. You see the ears curving to a defined point, very like rough, chiseled features, but everything has been sunken in, and there is an emaciation to this figure that is floating in the tank, clutching onto the sword. There are marks on the skin, old wounds. Sun can see that some of the flesh has clearly been cut, but there's no longer any blood that is swelling forth from it. The sword that is in this emaciated figure's hands, it's like they're the last thing that they did before they passed is just curl themselves around so that the rigor mortis of their body would hold this blade to themselves. As the sun places their hand with the crystal flame now within their palm against the glass, there is a flare from the sword. The sword begins to shake within, more of the flames and crashing sounds from outside of the tank are heard. The sword continues to jolt and shiver in this moment. And as we must come to in each chapter, each episode of this story, this is a moment as the sun reaches out to connect with this sword, with this blade, this piece of history for themselves. And we must flip the coin for them once more. Came back for me. Unfortunately for our son, we have flipped a skull. Second skull. Sword begins to vibrate. The heat within Sun's palm grows. The water of this tank that they find themselves in is now bubbling as it begins to boil. The light from the crystal in their palm grows more and more intense. There is a shifting as shadows out beyond the tank have dealt with whatever golems or creatures were out there, and they are now turning their attention to the tank that Sun is in, as well as the one where the sword and this emaciated figure are. Sun knows that they only have so much time. Sun reaches out. They feel that flame that is burning within their chest, and it is echoed and resonated within this blade as well. They embrace everything of that fire and that heat, and the sword cuts through, just turning and burning its way through the glass of the tank. The water swirls out, the emaciated figure swirling out as well. The sword goes whirling out, and before it can pierce itself into the ground, the blade swishes around and cuts through the tank where the sun is, reaches up, grabs a hold of the blade, and fire bursts out. In that moment, as the fire bursts out, Sun feels that odd disconnect as reality almost snaps back together for them. All of those sensations that they were feeling are roiling away. The crystal in their palm is glowing. As they grab onto the blade of the sword, that light, as that light intensifies and the break in the tank opens up, water pouring out and scattering. Looking out into this chamber, there are elementals that are broken apart throughout here. Stone golems that look like they have been merged together with molten lava. Pieces of them are scattered around. There are carvings and crystal tools everywhere. But one face looks through the crack of the glass, meeting the eyes of the sun. Father, the faint of psionics flaring through as they send not words but feelings. And Son intuits them as the father's voice almost explaining what they're trying to say. It's all right, we're here to help, it's okay, you don't need to. No, and flames just burst forth from behind the Son. They feel it pouring forth from their hand. No, I don't want this. And fire just engulfs everything. And that's where we will leave chapter 2 of Legacy. Thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned for more glorious installments in this adventure, or go and check out our incredible season 1 of myself and all of my wonderful cast in Twist of Fate Convergence. You can find it on Spotify or YouTube or anywhere that you listen to your podcasts.